Hi, good morning. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Psychology 1508, the Psychology of Leadership. I'll have to be checking once in a while. I'm teaching another class, 1504, Positive Psych. So I may get confused once in a while I'm lecturing. You'll have to just put your hand up and tell me that I'm off. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday who's... his name is Charles Jacobs. He's one of the leaders of the anti-slavery group in the United States and in the world. He's been doing a lot of work. We'll talk about him. We'll have one of his colleagues come in as a guest lecturer. He's been doing a lot of work to abolish slavery in places like Sudan, Mauritania, other places, sex slavery throughout the world. And he asked me, so what are you teaching this semester? And I said, I'm teaching two classes, one positive psychology and the other one on leadership. And he says, oh, so you're teaching one class on happiness and one on unhappiness. And, I thought about it since he said that, and it's not exactly right, but there is something to it. Leadership is a calling. It has to come from here. It's not always pleasurable. It's not always easy. It's very often about going against the grain. Very often it's doing things that we wouldn't normally do, getting out of our comfort zone. This is what we're going to do in this class, you see, because this is not just a class on leadership. It is a class in leadership. Yes, you're going to read research, latest research on the topic. You're going to be introduced to empirical work. We're going to draw on different stories of great leaders from history. But not just that. Primarily, the focus of this class will be on helping us, and by us, I mean the students and the teaching staff, become better leaders, develop as leaders. This is a class on leadership development. Today, you'll get a sense of what it's about, how we're going to do it throughout the semester. Obviously, we have a whole agenda. Before I go into the material, to give you a sense what this class is about so you can decide whether it is or is not for you, a couple of announcements. This class and Psychology 1504 will not be taught again next year. I'm on leave. It may be taught in 2 years, but I'm not sure I'll be back. So I can't promise. I should know later on in the semester. The second thing, the class 1508 counts for EC concentration as well as for Gov concentration as a related field, I guess. But you can find out more about it from your department. Since we are going to be talking a lot about political leaders, we're also going to talk about leaders in sports, athletics. We're going to talk about leaders in education. We're going to talk about parenting, the most difficult, arguably, leadership position of all. Believe me, I know. We're going to talk about psychology. After all, this is a class in psychology. We're going to talk about research, everything applied. Applied to your life in the future as a parent, applied to your life as a leader in an organization, not-for-profit, for-profit, political leader, leader of a department, or wherever. Leadership matters. In his opening speech when he assumed the role of leadership at Harvard University, Larry Summers said, "In this new century, nothing will matter more than the education of future leaders and the development of new ideas." But what does that mean? What does that mean? Does it mean that we need to know about what's going on in Sudan, or has been going on there for the last 25 years? Does it mean that we need to understand the human genome? Does it mean that we need to understand the nature of justice, or how the economy works? The answer is yes. This is part of leadership, but it is only part of leadership. Knowing is not enough. Reflection is not enough. We also need action. So while I know what's going on in Sudan, do I know how to mobilize a group to stand in front of the UN building or embassies or write op-eds about it with a group of friends, or if I know about the genome and its structure, can I mobilize a team of scientists and find solution to Parkinson or AIDS? Or if I know how the economy works and the nature of justice, do I just keep it to myself? Or do I spread my word, often going against the grain, paying the price of leadership, because leadership exacts a price? What choices do I make? The choices that I make define me ultimately as a leader. A good leader or a bad leader, an effective leader or an ineffective leader. Good and effective are not the same. We'll talk about the distinction when we talk about the morality of leadership, ethics in leadership. This class is for people who want to make a difference. It's for people who want to make a difference in the world, but first and foremost in their lives. Because we can't really be effective leaders, mobilize others, if we don't first and foremost develop ourselves. Confucius, one of the greatest leadership scholars, said this 2,500 years ago. The ancients, who wished to illustrate illustrious virtue throughout the kingdom, first ordered well their own states. Wishing to order well their states, they first regulated their families. Wishing to regulate their families, they first cultivated their person. Personal development is leadership development. Leadership scholars, the leading leadership scholars, know this. Jim Kouzes, leadership development is character development. He's the author of the bestseller, The Leadership Challenge. Ellen van Velser, from the Center for Creative Leadership. We believe that developing the capacities needed for effective leadership, such as self-awareness, systematic thinking, and creativity, is synonymous with what is often labeled personal development. We're going to talk about systems thinking in this class, what I think is the language of leadership. Those of you who took 1502, I touched on it then. We're going to talk about creativity and the conditions we need to put in place for ourselves to be more creative and for our organization. We're certainly going to raise levels of awareness through meeting in groups, in sections, and in response papers. Warren Bennis, who's one of my mentors, the process of becoming a leader is much the same as the process of becoming an integrated human being. For the leader, as for any integrated person, life itself is the career. And by life, he means everything that we do, whether it's being in a classroom at Harvard, whether it's doing extracurriculars in the afternoon, whether it's volunteering, whether it's in the workplace. In order to get a lot out of this class, you need to do the work. You know, the teaching staff of this class can only do so much. In other words, it doesn't mean having a lot of reading, because this class doesn't have a lot of reading. You know, it's on what's on the website is not everything that you need to read. You need to read less than that. Because I want you to invest more time in your leadership development, and that means putting a lot of time thinking about the response papers. It means putting a lot of time meeting with your friends from the class and discussing these ideas. Now, there's no way for us to monitor how much you put into your response papers. Now, they're graded pass-fail. If you hand it in, you pass. I'm not going to grade you on levels of self-awareness. But it's up to you to put in the work. The more you put in, the more you'll get out. A lot of research shows that people who develop most as leaders have two characteristics. One, they have a strong desire to succeed. They want to get better, to better themselves. And two, which is related to the first, they're always asking questions. They're always curious, always want to develop, whether it's as leaders, as parents, as friends, as students. Who are the subjects in this class? Some of the subjects are these larger-in-life Rushmorean figures. People like Washington, Jefferson, Lincoln, Teddy Roosevelt. It's people who are larger in life, like Rosa Parks, an obscure follower who transformed herself and through that society. Martin Luther King, the eloquent, brilliant, humble leader who changed the world. Aung San Suu Kyi, who's leading the movement for democracy in Burma today, fighting against oppression of the government. The great communicator who brought out the resolve of the American people and the free world and defeated the evil empire. We're going to talk about James Piermont Morgan, the great American capitalist who basically defined what American business is about. Imperfect, but certainly much more confidence in the markets in America than any other place in the world, much more integrity, much more honesty compared to any other place in the world. J.P. Morgan. We're going to talk about him. We're going to talk about Steve Mariotti, founder of NIFTY, National Foundation for Training Entrepreneurs. Steve Mariotti takes people in an allegedly hopeless predicament on the streets, brings them into the classroom and transforms them into entrepreneurs, into self-reliant and responsible leaders. We're going to talk about Wendy Kopp, founder and president of Teach for America, who's shaping the face of the future. Anyone here going for Teach for America next year? Just a couple. She's going to be here as one of our guest lecturers later in the semester. But it's not just these people that we're going to study. We're also going to be studying the quiet leaders. Leaders who are not in the limelight. Leaders who are not well known, but leaders who make all the difference. We're going to talk about the soldier whose face is obscured by the mud, fighting for liberty. We're going to talk about the teacher who, far away from the limelight, is once again shaping the face of the future. When I say quiet leadership, I don't necessarily mean lower decibel levels or lower volume. Coach Delaney Smith, the basketball coach, who's anything but quiet, but she's doing her work, phenomenal work, away from the limelight, making a difference to many girls on the basketball court and outside, displaying courage, being a role model to many people. We're also going to talk a lot about the millions and billions of quiet leaders, the parents. As I said earlier, arguably the most difficult leadership position out there. In the picture are two parents, Patricia O'Brien and Joe Badaracco, with their daughter, Gabriella. They're the co-masters of Courier House. Anyone here from Courier? All right. We're going to talk about Joe Badaracco a fair amount this year. He's one of the most important writers on leadership. Let me read to you something he wrote in a Harvard Business Review article called Quiet Leadership. The quiet approach to leadership is easy to misunderstand and mock. It doesn't inspire or thrill. It focuses on small things, careful moves, controlled and measured efforts. It doesn't provide storylines for uplifting TV shows. In contrast to heroic leadership, quiet leadership doesn't show us the heights that the human spirit can reach. What then do the imperfect, unglamorous, everyday efforts of quiet leaders amount to? Almost everything. The vast majority of difficult human problems are not solved by the dramatic efforts of people at the top, but by consistent striving of people working far from the limelight. This class will focus on the Rushmorean figures, on the great leaders. Why? Because we have a lot more information on them, by definition. They are in the limelight. But not only. It's also going to focus on and be relevant to the department head, to the platoon commander, to the teachers, to the parents, to each and every one of us. Another great leader, Albert Schweitzer, spent a lot of time in Central Africa helping poor people overcome disease. Had this to say about leadership. Of all the will toward the ideal in mankind, only a small part can manifest itself in public action. All the rest of this force must be content with small and obscure deeds. The sum of these, however, is 1,000 times stronger than the acts of those who receive wide public recognition. The latter, compared to the former, are like the foam on the waves of a deep ocean. The deep ocean is about the quiet leaders who make the big difference. Another leader, George Eliot, also known as, or original name, Mary Ann Evans, my favorite author, in her book Middlemarch, writes about Dorothea. Dorothea, who is a quiet leader, who ostensibly doesn't make a difference in other people's life. Is a good person, though, helps individual by individual. Here is the last phrase of this book, Middlemarch. Her full nature, like that river of which Cyrus broke the strength, spent itself in channels which had no great name on earth. But the effect of her being on those around her was incalculably diffusive, for the growing good of the world is partly dependent on unhistoric acts. And that things are not so ill with you and me as they might have been is half owing to the number who lived faithfully a hidden life and rest in unvisited tombs. Whether we rest in unvisited tombs, whether we have a pyramid built on top of us or a mountain in our honor, we can make a difference with the little things, with everything that we do. And making a difference, it's not just for others, because to lead is to be immersed fully in this world. It is to live fully, so that 40 years, 50 years, 7 years from now, or tomorrow, we can look back at what we did and be proud of it. As I said earlier, this is not just a class on leadership, it is a class in leadership. What does this mean? What are we going to do? One of the things that we're going to do, we're going to use a technique that has been shown to be effective in cultivating authentic leadership, telling stories about our own lives. By the end of the semester, you'll have a semi-autobiography of yourself as it relates to leadership, as it relates to your crucibles, as it relates to the things you did well, to your strengths, as it relates to your greatest moments, your peak experiences. In an article that you'll be reading for this week, Shamir and Elam say the following. The life story approach to authentic leader development suggests that self-knowledge, self-concept clarity, and the internalization of the leader's role into the self-concept are achieved through the construction of stories. In this regard, it is different from most leadership development programs, which tend to focus on the acquisition of concepts, skills, and behaviors, either in courses and workshops or through on-the-job experiences, mentoring, and coaching. We are going to do skill development. We are going to do all these things, but one of the pillars of the class will be telling stories. Another pillar of this class will be action learning. You see, leadership is a skill. You can't learn a skill in a classroom. You can't become a better basketball player in a classroom. You can't become a better violin player by just reading the notes. You have to practice. No difference with leadership. Richard Hackman, arguably the leading organizational behaviorist in the world, teaches here, says, skills cannot be mastered by reading books, listening to lectures, or doing case analysis. Instead, skill training involves observation of positive models, i.e., of people whose behavior illustrates highly competent execution of that which is being taught, coupled with repeated practice and feedback. This is what this class is about. We're going to observe positive role models. Not only positive, we're also going to observe negative role models. We have a guest lecturer who's going to talk about bad leadership, Professor Barbara Kellerman from the Kennedy School. But the focus is going to be what can we learn from them, and then, again, apply to our lives. That's how we develop skills. Gibber, who works at Linkage Consulting, one of the leading consulting companies, says action learning has emerged as the hottest approach in the leadership field. The fastest and most lasting learning is produced when people are engaged in finding real solution to real problems. The model that is going to guide us, again, the second pillar after the stories, is the following model: combining action and reflection. And we're going to talk about that a lot. We have a whole class dedicated to it. Those of you in 1504, I think I talked about it there. It's about combining the activity with thinking about it. Action followed by action is not enough. Reflection followed by reflection is not enough either. Some of the best leadership programs are programs like Outward Bound or FOP. How many have been through FOP here? Fred? Okay, quite a few. Again, a leadership program. Why? You're acting and you're reflecting. This is an effective model for leadership development. Michael Useem, who is a professor at Wharton Business School, taught leadership for many years and then realized that he needed to take his students or his executive trainees out to the field. So what he has now is a yearly climb at the Himalayas where they're really challenged. And then every night at camp, they reflect on what happened today, how they were as leaders, how they were as followers, team players, and so on, combining the action, the climb, and the reflection. So we're all going to the Himalayas with the $8 that I have for each student. So we can't do that. What I did in my other class, a seminar, some of you were in it last year, we actually had a leadership project where this was the action part, and then in class, through response papers, we reflect on it. So it's something I thought about for this class. Let's have a leadership project. And then it suddenly hit me. And what came to mind was something I read way back. I wrote my college essay on this book, Zen and the Art of College Maintenance, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. And Robert M. Pirsig writes there, sometimes truth knocks on our door, and we open the door and we say to it, go away, I'm looking for the truth. And I felt that way because I had the action part. I didn't need to have an extra exercise here. You see, because an action part has to be two things. First, it has to be personally meaningful in order to affect change, because we must be motivated to act. And second, it has to be challenging. It has to get us out of our comfort zone. I said, wait a minute. I know what answers these two criteria. Our lives. For most people, making our lives better is meaningful, personally meaningful. I've yet to meet a person who hasn't encountered challenges in his or her life. So it answers these two criteria. And what I thought of this class, of what 1508 can do, it can be the reflective part. So you can look at it, if you will, as a meta class, a class that will help you reflect on your experience here at Harvard, which is the dominant or one of the dominant parts of your life at this point, things that you have gone through in the past, in high school, or things that you will go through in the future. A meta class, reflection on the action that we carry out every day. One of the things that researchers found in leadership development is that we don't have a lack of leadership experiences. There are many of them out there, day in and day out. The problem is that most people don't take advantage of these experiences. And again, we tell it, go away, we're looking for the truth about leadership development or whatever it is. These experiences are right here in front of us. The question is, do we engage in them? And hopefully this class will also teach you a skill that you can take with you way beyond this class, to your working world, to your challenges that you will face as a leader, at work, as a parent, or wherever. Okay. Any questions before I move on to introduce the teaching staff who are going to make this class possible? Any questions? I'll leave some more time at the end for questions. Yes? Okay. The midterm and the final, both in this class and in 1504, are going to be in class. So it's not going to be a take-home, unlike last year. I'm sorry about that, but for a variety of reasons, I decided that it will contribute more to the learning experience if it's not. Again, you may disagree, but this is the decision. So both in class. Thesis writers can take it after they hand in their thesis. Other questions? All right. Let me introduce the teaching staff and start with the one and only Sean Aker.
Hey, my name is Sean Aker. You might know me from such classes as Wit and Humor, Positive Psychology, and Human Sexuality. We're really excited about this class. We passed out over 420 syllabi this morning, which is amazing. This class is going to be phenomenal. It's one of the best 2 classes at Harvard. Can't remember what the other one was, but if you come back tomorrow at 11:30, you might find out. I came here as an undergrad. I studied English and religion and went to divinity school, studied Christian and Buddhist ethics, and now I'm spending time working in a psych lab, writing a novel, and applying to business school. Is that it?
Great. So do you want to call up the rest?
Yeah. Do you want to come next? Can all the TFs come up? We'll go one by one.
Right. Yeah, why don't you all come up so they put a name to a face.
A couple of extra things. Do I have the microphone? I have a few things. But they're all boring. One of them is EC10 is after this class, so all the people are going to be coming on this side, so just make sure that everyone exits on this side, so out of one of these 2 doors at the end of it. The other thing is we're going to be starting sectioning the following week. As soon as study cards are in, or as soon as everyone's enrolled in the class, we'll start the sectioning processes. Most of the sections will be on Monday and Tuesdays. We have them both in the afternoons and the evenings for the athletes that have practice in the afternoon. So we have a lot of flexibility and some amazing TFs, and here they are.
Right.
Good morning. It's so great to see all of you here. I hope you had a great break. My name is Jessica Glazer. I'm going to be TFing for this class, and I'm going to be the head TF for Positive Psychology, so I hope to see all of you tomorrow at 11:30. It's going to be a great semester, and I look forward to working with all of you. So you guys want to come up?
Hi, I'm Jan Rybeck. I'm definitely in the right class, although the sex class sounds kind of interesting. I've been an organizational consultant for the past 8-10 years, doing coaching, consulting, facilitation, training in companies. I'm also a parent, which I agree is the hardest leadership job there is, and I learn every day. And I'm just thrilled. It's going to be a great semester. Thanks.
Hi, I'm George Karras, a recent graduate of the business school, worked in consulting, founded an adventure summer camp for teenagers, worked in competitive intelligence, and led product development teams, and here I am.
Hi, welcome everyone. My name is Pat Hernandez. I graduated here in 04 in psychology from Leverett House and have worked closely with Tal for 4 years. I think once you take one of his classes, you just don't look back, you take them all. Right now I worked in conflict management in Boston, and I'll be doing change management consulting next year. I spent the last year in Korea and have had a great experience with Tal's classes, so I highly recommend you take this one.
Good morning, I'm Chuck Houston. Many of you know me as a TF from Social Psych. I'm also a concentration advisor in the psychology department, and so I'll be hopefully seeing a lot of study cards this week. But prior to coming to Harvard, where I'm a graduate student in the extension school, I did spend 24 years as a business leader in a distribution business that I owned. And I'm also a dad, and I have a son named Chuck as well. So I've got a little experience in leadership, and I hope to share it with all of you.
Great. So this is the team. We'll do sectioning next week. And as you can see, a lot of experience here and a lot of passion. Thank you. Let's quickly go over the syllabus, just briefly. Again, I think it's self-explanatory. Just to highlight a few things, we have quite a few guest lecturers. One of them on February 13th, Dr. Danielle Kennedy, who's going to talk to us about leadership executive coaching, since one of the things that you're going to do in this class is be a coach and a coachee. So we're going to spend some time on that. We have guest lecturer from the Young Presidents Organization, Dick Simon, who is one of the heads of YPO. We'll talk about leaders of leaders. Sean Aker will be giving a couple of lectures, also in positive psych, and one on the ethics of power, and the other one on charisma. Certainly the right person to teach that. We're going to talk Barbara Kellerman on bad leadership, Wendy Kopp talking about Teach for America. Then we'll have one of the leaders from the anti-slavery movement, Jesse Sage, who is, I think, barely 30 years old, graduated, less than 30, he's class of 97. Graduated from here and has done amazing things around the world fighting slavery. And then on May 1st, we have Seth Klarman, who is one of the world's leading investment bankers and also a great leader. I've gotten to know him through a lot of nonprofit work that he does. So he's going to talk about business and leadership in general. Every one of these lectures is phenomenal. As I said earlier, in terms of the midterm and final, if it were up to me, I wouldn't give an exam. I wouldn't have grades. But there has to be some semi-objective way of differentiating. And I also think it has some benefits in that it gets you to look over the material as a whole. You can take the class pass-fail. Certainly no problem with that. I just don't know how it works out in terms of your concentration. You'll have to find out from Psych, Ec, or Government, respectively. As I said earlier, there's not a lot of reading in this class. The reading list is comprehensive. It also includes recommended reading. I'm going to choose each week. You're going to get a long email from me talking about a few things. One, what the reading is, except for the first 2 weeks. The first 2 weeks, what's on the reading list is what you read. But after that, each week I'll select a few pieces and the rest will be recommended. I'll also give you directions for your coaching group. Each student is going to be part of a coaching group, 3 to 4 people who are going to meet once a week, starting hopefully the second, possibly the third week. And you'll meet wherever you want. You can meet over a meal for about 90 minutes and coach each other and be coached by each other, developing leadership skills as you coach and as you're being coached. Again, we're going to talk much more about this in the third week of the class. There are no books for this class, so everything is online. Let me summarize. Warren Bennis, as I said earlier, one of the leading leadership scholars, asked this question: where have all the leaders gone? Paraphrasing, where have all the flowers gone? Recognizing that there is a dearth of leadership in today's culture. Where are they? John Gardner asked the same question. Where are the Jeffersons and Lincolns of today? The answer, I'm convinced, is that they're among us. Out there in the setting with which we are all familiar are the unawakened leaders, feeling an overpowering call to lead and hardly aware of the potential within. What I hope that this class will do is inspire you to be a leader, to go against the grain if necessary, because the world needs leaders. Abigail Adams wrote to Jefferson in 1790. These are the times in which a genius would wish to live. Great necessities call forth great leaders. There are great necessities today, with the widespread of terrorism, with the widespread of fundamentalism, of AIDS, poverty, but not only of the negative stuff, also widespread freedom, unprecedented levels of freedom, technology that can be put to great use, medical advancement that can be put to great use. But one thing, it's all complex, very complex, and it's up to the leader to mobilize the people to work on certain issues, to help spread and cultivate the great things, whether in medicine, technology, wealth, creation, or freedom. And it is up to you to do it. Now, I want to end this class on a little bit of a personal note. This class is inspired by a leader, my mentor, my supervisor, my dear friend, Phil Stone, who passed away 2 days ago. There hasn't been a leader in my life who has influenced me more, and I'm dedicating this class and positive psychology to him. I hope to see you in the classes. Thank you.